I can't film right now. It's a couple reasons. There's a bunch of stuff going on across the street, and it's really hot. So I'm trying to set this up for all messages. So I'll wait till a few of you get here, and we'll take a look. We're going to talk about some of my favorite knives, and the reason they're I had to make a judgment. Like, I have a lot of knives. You guys know this. I have hundreds of knives. So I'll wait till a couple people show up. I literally have hundreds of knives here. And for me to be able to sit down and say that these are my favorite knives, I thought about this last night. I was like, oh, I should do this as a live feed. And then with the stuff that's going on across the street and with it being hot in the studio, I was like, I'll just do this. So as soon as a few of you all show up, we can dig into it. But basically, for me to say that it's one of my favorite knives, it means that it has to spend a lot of time in my pocket. And so I, like I said, decided, it sounds like they've stopped making so much noise, but you may hear it in the background. They're doing some roofing across the street. So yeah, it's going to be a bunch of stuff that I went through and grabbed because I knew I could do it this way. So there was 2 people here, now there aren't. But yeah, so favorite knives for me are knives that have to spend a lot of time in pocket. And so I've grabbed a bunch of stuff that has been spending a lot of time in pocket. Let me know how the audio is. If you guys are here, is the audio good? Because I'm always curious as to whether I've got these microphones set up, because I really have no way of testing it for a live. So for a pre-recorded video, I can do a test shot and test the audio and walk around and make sure that I'm getting good audio from everywhere. But yeah, like for me to say a knife is my favorite knife, it's got to spend a lot of my time in my pocket. So those of you that hear, yeah, there we go. I was getting ready to say Cold Steel Kobun and a Boker Balisong Plus small. So the Kobun is the Tonto. It looks like the Recon Tonto, but it's thinner. It's more the boot knife, in case any of you guys were wondering. I had one. I haven't seen one for a while. I had one, and I didn't like it. It was too thin. I thought it was going to be more like the Recon Tonto. I didn't do any, like, looking. I didn't do any, like, it was my fault when I bought it. I should have looked at the dimensions and things like that. So OZKCQDQ, don't know if you can get a hold of me. I don't even know who you are. So I have a couple fixed blades here that are absolutely a couple of my favorite fixed blades. I have a lot of fixed blades, and for me to pick a couple that I have to say are my favorite, there's got to be something special. And this one, I have to say, is like the pinnacle of my favorite of favorites when it comes to a fixed blade carry. The Lon Humphrey Custom Tucson. It's a guy in Ohio. He's making knives just like not far from my mother's house, to tell you the truth. This came from a subscriber. They said they were going to send me something, and I was like, oh, okay. This was Zach Schmidt. As a matter of fact, both of the fixed blades you're going to see came from Zach Schmidt. They were both gifts. And he's famous for sending me things, when he does send me things, that are very, very striking. The handles on this are not just attractive. You probably saw it in a short last night, my sunset knife. That reminds me of a sunset, and I carry this all the time. This was over at Scab's channel for a while. It came back, and it has been on my hip basically since it came back. It comes with this gorgeous leather sheath that fits that, you know, that southwestern motif that you kind of get with this. But this is very, very simply the kind of knife the frontiersman would carry, the kind of sheath it would be in. This would be the kind of thing that, like, you know, these are the knives that you saw cowboys carrying, like no joke cowboys, like the no bullshit, like driving cattle across the country. This would be what they would carry. Something very similar to this. Easy to use, nice size knife. It's going to get the work, it's going to get the job done. It's comfortable. It's not something that is flashy or frilly, except for, you know, gorgeous handles on it. This is a workhorse of a knife. It's an AEBL, and it has about the best heat treat I've ever seen on, well, I think it has the best heat treat I've ever seen on AEBL. It is stunningly easy to sharpen to an incredible edge. This thing is hair popping sharp, and it rides on your belt so well that you'll forget it's there. You really will. So whoever is here, anybody here, the 6 of you, there are 0 likes. All you have to do is double tap the screen. It helps push this stuff up the algorithm. So if you would be ever so kind to drop a like if you're watching it, because there's 6 of you here. As far as another fixed blade that I have to say is one of my favorites, it's this one. Now this is the Bark River North Country EDC 2. Now I don't carry it as much as I carry this one for a couple of reasons. This is a good bit heavier. This has some composite handles that are absolutely some of the most attractive handles you're ever going to come across. It looks like a koi fish, if you want my opinion. You've got the scales and everything. It is beautiful, but also such a great, great knife. Now, the only reason I don't carry this much is because this is a first production run. And like I said, it's a little heavier, and the sheath does not, I don't find this as comfortable a carry as this one. I think it's because this sits higher up above the belt. But as far as cutting and things like that, absolute champ. This has got a full convex on it that comes down so, so nicely and sharp. Good bit of belly on this. And the thing about the Bark River knives is they will honor their warranty pretty much no matter what you do to this knife. It does not matter what you do to this knife. They will honor the warranty. I believe he said the only thing that would void the warranty is if your knife was destroyed by a honey badger in the woods, and it was a very, very limiting factor. So basically, if you break the tip off this, they'll honor the warranty. The handles on this are what is so incredible. Let me grab this, turn this around, and you guys can see it a little bit better with that camera view. These are incredible. Mosaic pins on that construction. The color there, it's got cherry liners. I think this was ruby red frost dragon scale with cherry red linen liners. That's what was on the box. I like this knife so much that I remember exactly what was listed or marked on the box for the description of the handles. But when it comes down to it, you want to talk about a top class cutter. Such a good knife. This is one of those ones that I love everything about it until it's time to carry it. And then that just sitting a little higher just kind of puts it back. I may see if I can't manufacture a loop of sorts so that it sits lower. You can see how much this gets carried. This has been carried so much that I've deformed the belt loop on it to match my belt. And guys, if there's 14 of you here and you're watching the content, please drop a like. That's all I'm asking. So yeah, those are some of my favorite fixed blades. There is a third, but it's, yeah, I got a haircut. I got a haircut and I trimmed my beard. So, who is Typhoon Malhounson? I don't know who that is. That might be Bubbles. Bubbles may have changed his username again. Oh, Murky. This one, this was a gift from Winston Cobretti. He gave me this. This is a nice little, I don't consider this, even though it's a fixed blade, I don't consider it a fixed blade because it carries so much like a folding knife. It's got the nice little Kydex sheath. I've put a utility clip on it so I can carry it in pocket. This is a great, great little knife that's a perfect little self-defense tool. Where did everybody go? There was like 12 people here. So this is one that I carry. This is a very good little self-defense knife that I carry, and it's got such good jimping all the way down. These are a little bit harder to find. These were done by Acheron for Bastinelli. Bastin had these done. So Bastinelli design, done by Acheron through, who made these? Viper in Italy. So this was a French company, Acheron, by a French designer in Florida through an Italian company. My card on this. This is a great knife to put in your pocket if you think you might be in a neighborhood where you need something to defend yourself. It's not gonna fail. It's not gonna fail, and the blade shape on it is so good. And then once it's locked in that grip, you've got a very, very good cutting knife. I don't carry this for self-defense because we talked yesterday. I have that folding Picol. That's what I carry now as a self-defense tool. But this is also a very, very good one. And then those micarta handles are just the perfect shape. When I first got it, I couldn't get around the shape of it. It just felt weird. It didn't feel right. And then I just really started to warm up to it. The jimping on it is just perfect. And even though it's like a 3-finger grip, my pinky finger just drops down here and it locks it in almost like a ring. Like it's pinched in there. So I'm pinched down in here and then it comes up and then my pinky finger is right up against it. So it's like locked in. I'm not going either direction. There's no slippage on that. I've basically got myself locked in because I'm pulling back on that jimping and I'm squeezing down on that. This is a great, great knife. If you can find one of these, I don't remember the last place I saw one. I want to say I saw these on Knife Center. Maybe on Knife Center. I don't know. So, guys, there's 11 of you here. If you guys want to interact, tell me what you're carrying. Tell me whether you like these knives or not and stuff like that. It helps feeds up the algorithm, and the best thing you can do is hit that like button. So those are my favorite fixed blades. I have some other fixed blades that would fall into that category, but they don't get carried enough. Like those knives get carried. This one not as much. This one just because it's so beautiful. But the two of those, they're constant carry items. Like this is just literally in my pocket all the time here at the house. I've carried this all kinds of places besides just here at the house. It's just an incredibly well done knife. So, and then that would bring us to like some folding knives. So what are you guys' favorite knives? Guys, I'm trying to do a live feed here for you, man. That's all I'm trying to do. You guys had complained I didn't do live feeds enough. 2024 has been disappointing as far as new models going back in time and picking up classics. That's kind of where the direction the channel's going. I have not been really impressed with a lot of the new knives, and I don't like taking my channel that direction, where I'm always chasing just the new stuff. I think this is going to always just be one of those channels where you wind up seeing some stuff that's just old school, classic, great ones. Logan 2070 Benchmade Freak is one of my favorites. Benchmade Freak is a good knife. I just don't like Benchmade. I'm at this point where I just can't justify supporting anything Benchmade does. Benchmade has they've really taken it too far with their pricing structure. They've taken it too far with their pricing structure and lack of quality. But I have to say the Benchmade Freak was one of the few that I did like. The Benchmade Anthem I liked, but it was too expensive. Benchmade Anthem, if you weren't law enforcement or military, I think they were $700 for the Benchmade Anthem. Which I get it, but let's see here. Benchmade business model has changed over the last few years. I don't know what they did. I don't know if they got foreign investments, even though they're still American made. I don't know if they got foreign investment or they got bad, I don't know if it was like, oh, well, look at how much some of these knives are going on the secondary market. We can sell our knives at that price, and I think it's going to fail, especially when you've got. Granted, this is a very expensive knife, but this is one of my favorites. Tashi Barucha sent me this. This is an integral, and I think this one was $550, but it was because it was the special carbon fiber overlays, and they had some other ones that were different and stuff like that. But this one is definitely. This is my favorite integral of all times. I don't like integrals. I like the Ray. Dylan Mallory's design. Let me see here. What's this? Benchmade. So Logan says, Logan 2070, agree, Benchmade is now out of touch and others build just as good crossbar knives. I have to say that pretty much everyone builds better crossbar knives. Not just as good, pretty much if another company puts a crossbar lock in their knife, it's going to be better than Benchmade's. I haven't had a good axis lock from Benchmade ever. Well, the one that was on the Anthem was good, but that's basically because it was the same as this one, which is the best crossbar lock on the market, in my opinion, which is the Microtech Ram lock, which if you go look at how the Anthem was done with the plunger and the single spring in the center and then the actuator here on the side, it's basically the same lock. The crossbar lock is, they've capitalized on a lock that basically Benchmade did in the Anthem and then didn't do on any other knives, and it was a better axis lock. Because it doesn't have that weird play back and forth, it doesn't have secondary, it doesn't have springs on either side, it just has that single spring down the middle, which means if you want to actuate that knife with your left thumb, you don't have to worry about weakening and breaking the springs. And I had some guys like, I've had it done like this for like 20 years and I've never broken a spring. And then everybody dogpiled on me in the comments are like, bro, there are so many people that have broken their springs. Logan 2070, Pops passed away and Junior took over. Benchmade, he will ruin the brand. Yeah. Lone Star Top Boy, the Benchmade brand loyalty makes it possible for them to get those prices from diehard collectors. Yeah, but the whole thing is they're like custom knife makers at knife shows that only make one type of knife. They basically, their customer base is dying, literally dying. The old school Benchmade guys aren't going to be around forever. You know what I mean? And especially when you've got companies like this, like Vosteed here, that are, did the audio change when I left? I'm not 100% sure that I've got this microphone hooked up correctly. I just want to make sure that we're on the right microphone. This has the best axis lock in it of any knife I've ever had. There is zero friction, it's super smooth. You can flick it open, it is drop shut. The biggest problem I have with Benchmade's axis lock is they run their knives on washers. And unlike companies that do a good job with their washers, like this Chris Reeve Sabenza, what was this? Okay, good, I'm good on audio. Paul Mills is here, KC7ABC. This is done well on washers. It's nice and free, it's smooth. Actually, there's a little bit of blade play in that. I got to take this part, clean it, tighten it up anyway. You will get blade play on these. If your pivot is loose and you got really strong hands like me, you can find blade play in it. But it's minimal. But the fact is, this is done very well on washers. Unfortunately for Benchmade, their knives don't run free and smooth on they don't run as nicely on washers as a Sabenza. The problem you have with a Benchmade is, like with a lot of companies that do bearings, but they don't do them as well. They don't set themselves a little offset in their tolerances to allow movement, so you don't tighten too far down. That's what the piece that's in the pivot bushing in here does, is it sets that. And so you can't really tighten, you can, but you can't really tighten it down too far to where your washers are too tight. Benchmade doesn't do that. You crank a Benchmade down too far and it's stiff, it's a two-hand opener. My 940, when I get rid of the blade play in it, once you get rid of the blade play, like it's a two-hand opener and not an easy two-hand opener. This runs on bearings, so the bearings basically set your offset. You crank this down fairly tight, you still got free action because your bearings are still going to roll and you still get freeness. You could tighten this down and kill your action, but there's no blade play on this. It's nice and snug. Benchmade 940, the only way I get free action on my Benchmade 940 or any of the Benchmades I've ever owned that have an axis lock is I have to deal with the fact I have blade play. And I hate how fucking obvious that big scar is on my face when I do these live feeds. It doesn't show up in the pre-recorded videos. I don't know what the difference is between the rendering that happens on screen or if it's the natural lighting or what, but that big scar on my face is very, very clear, and it drives me insane. I'm not like a vain kind of person, but sitting here and being forced to like look at a great big facial scar, it kind of messes with you. Let's see here. Lone Star, 9 p.m. here in Izmir. Time for carry of the day change. Cold steel counterpoint, 6 and a Boker plus. Yeah, that's a good choice right there. The counterpoint is a very good knife. There's not a lot of value in most bench-made knives. Some knives, but are spendy. Yeah, I'll tell you a brand that I have come back around on, and I've got 3 of them here because these are 3 of my favorites. And it's Spyderco, and most notably the military line. The PM2, which is this PM2. So I have the military 2 and the PM2. I've seen the Para 3. So a lot of people are like, it's the PM3. It's not. It's the Para 3, but it's in the same line. I've had this knife longer. This is the military 2, and it's absolutely a great knife if you're a bigger guy. This is 9.5 inches overall. It feels great in my hand. I love this knife. It's just about the perfect size for me most of the time. But the problem is a lot of people are not 6'3", 230 pounds with size XXL gloves. It's not going to be the best fit for them, which is why I say this is the best all-around EDC period, because there are times where I'm using that military 2 and I'm like, this is just too big of a knife. It happens with a lot of knives when you get past about 8 inches overall length, especially if it's like closer to having more blade forward. Daniel, okay, Logan says, I have the ADV Bull Shark made by Best Tech. It's a big blade on bearings and crossbar. I've heard that one's pretty good. Daniel I don't have my reading glasses on. Sorry. I can't read my phone without my reading glasses. What are your thoughts on the Finch knives? Been thinking of picking up a Reciprocity. The Reciprocity is one of the best knives that Finch makes, and all the Finch knives are great. So, at any rate, this one is, like I was saying, this Spyderco right here, Spyderco PM2, I think is the best all-around EDC knife on the market. Even though I like this knife better, I can recognize that there's tasks that this knife does better. And like I was saying, it's because a lot of times when a knife gets long, when you start getting, the further you get past out the blade from the pivot, the less control you actually have, especially I have some nerve damage and I've got some motor control issues in my hand. And so for me, a smaller knife is easier to control for a lot of tasks. That's why I typically will carry a big knife. Perfect pairings, big knife and a small knife. This one, I'm much closer to blade. I got a lot more control of what I'm doing with the very tip of the blade than I do with this, which is where that PM2 bridges the gap. The Para 3 is too small for me. I don't like it. It's got a weird blade to handle ratio. It feels weird in my hand. The blade feels like short and stunted. It's almost like somebody broke a PM2 and then did a tip repair. Almost, because the handles are very similar in size. Ooh, sorry. The handles on the knives are very similar in size, but the blade is much smaller in a Para 3. I do know the handles are a little smaller, but the PM2 is just about that perfect size package for it to be what I consider the perfect EDC. You've got a good amount of usable blade. You've got really comfortable full grip on that. You're not going anywhere. It sits in your pocket really, really nice. And it's just about the perfect EDC if you don't have to worry about size constraints at work. So, like, if you're at a place where they're going to throw a fit, like, I'm going to do a video, I'm going to film a video of how my hobby got me fired. I'm not technically fired. Hey! Sergeant rocks Headbangers Ball. You need to go over to Rumble and check out his Rumble feed. He does Headbangers Ball. Every once in a while, I get to pick music. I get to pick music and put in an ad or something like that. It's a great channel. I watch it all the time. I might not tell you that they're Sergeant. I might not tell you that, but it's a fucking great channel. We've started following each other through Steven Crowder's Louder with Crowder Mug Club on Locals. So, fellow veteran as well. Great dude. I talked to him for hours one night. What's this? Hey, Mike, you've been missing me. You checking out from the Mary Washington Cardiac Unit, brother. You had, and I have the same issue. Extra large hands from palm to tip. My middle finger is 9. I had a standard ring sizer. You can't. I was like, hey, I was trying to get a ring. I took my original wedding ring off. And when they put it on that like cone, they're like, oh, we'll just put it on here and we'll figure out what's, because I didn't know the size. And it fell off the end. And they're like, oh my, I had to make this one. I made this ring in the shop out of a piece of titanium. It already was rounds and bored out. I just bored it out further on the mill to get to the size I needed. And then I cleaned everything up inside. So I basically made myself a wedding ring out of titanium for myself. Why are you at the cardiac ward? Wait, why are you at the Mary Washington Cardiac Unit? Lacey said to say hi. I said hi to Lacey too. I remember you chose Ricky Martin. No, I didn't. I forget what I chose. I think I chose Clutch, the Soap Makers, for one of the songs. It was some Megadeth. Because I like Megadeth because I like Dave Mustaine. A lot of you guys aren't old enough to know this, but Dave Mustaine was the original vocalist for Metallica back in the day, and then started Megadeth. There was a bunch of different songs that I picked. So yeah, these are the best all-around EDC, the PM2. The PM2 has been around, and like I said, it is a champ in my book when it comes to everyday carry. Mine did have a problem. It had a very low spot here that I tried to correct, and I just said screw it because I like having a sharpening choil on Spyderco's, so I just put one in on this since I couldn't get it. Had a very low spot, and I got rid of all of it. I'd be more inclined to say Sergeant Rock and I kind of agree that basically Dave Mustaine fired the band. But the story they told in the big documentary that they had back in the 90s that came out, and it was like a four VHS tape set. My sister had it, and we watched it, and they were like, oh, Dave was like, his drinking and everything was so over the top. And I was like, I don't know, you guys, like, that must be insane. So, but there's another Spyderco. Even though I say that the PM2 is the best one. So this is the best knife that they make, in my opinion, which is the Military 2. And then the PM2 is the best EDC money can buy. But neither one of those are my favorite Spyderco. Isn't that weird? Like, I say that all the time. People are like, wait, so you have knives that you say are the best, but it's not your favorite. And it's not. And it's because this one is my favorite. The Spyderco Police. There is no more, I mean, granted, these have been around, both of these have been around for a while, and they're very similar. The Police model, the Spyderco Police, the original, is just the most, in my opinion, the most iconic Spyderco knife there is. It's not the best one they make, and it's not even close to being their best EDC that they make. But for me, it's my favorite because it resonates back to when I saw these in my dad's, what did he have? Guns and Ammo magazine. Spyderco ran ads for this knife. And they had this one, and then they had the serrated one, and they were side by side, and it was laying on top of police gear in the ad in the magazine, and it just always stuck with me. And even though there's other versions of this one, that are full flat grind with FRN handles and different materials. This is the one I want. This isn't because it's not like this is a better knife than those. And to tell you the truth, they absolutely would be better cutters because a full flat grind is going to do better than that Saber hollow grind. But there's just something about the way this knife looks that just takes me back to sitting in the living room next to my dad's recliner underneath the end table that was in between the couch and his recliner. There was a big stack of his gun magazines, and there was ads for this knife in there. That's 100% what it is. Your favorite knife doesn't have to be based on function. Guys, there's 18 of you here, but only 9 likes. I'd appreciate it if you'd drop a like. But yeah, all the Spyderco knives that I just showed are great, and they have a lot of really good knives that just I don't like. And it has nothing to do with their quality or any of those things. It absolutely has to do with just the personal preference. I'm gonna try and lower you guys down so I can lean back, and then it has everything to do with just the design. I'm not a fan of those designs. And it's gonna be a weird, because I've got you tipped back so it's almost like fisheye lens looking, but it has 100% to do with the designs. I don't like the native series, except for the Chief, the native Chief. I want to see that one, but the thing is that, I'm sorry if I keep bumping that, but the cord is stuck to my, because I'm sweaty, and so the cord is the cord for the lavalier is stuck to my skin. Mustaine was drunk out of his mind, so he couldn't play the bassist. No, that was not. That was Cliff. The bassist was Cliff. I can't think of his name. It was not. Dave Mustaine was the vocalist. Cliff was the bassist. And then they brought in I can't remember how it worked, but Cliff, their bassist's name was Cliff. It wasn't Mustaine. At any rate, the native Chief and this are really, really similar. Cliff Burton, there you go. The native Chief and this seem very, very similar from what I've seen in pictures. So I just really don't see the sense in getting a native Chief. Like these are similar enough that like really I couldn't justify. The knives that Spyderco make that really appeal to me are the Endura series styles knives like this, the Endura, the Andella. But these military ones, I don't know, they're just a better feel in hand. So, but yeah, circle back to this one. This one is, like I was saying about integrals. So I kind of jumped ahead and talked about another brand when I didn't finish talking about this one. I'm not a fan of integrals, but this I think is the best one. And it's 100% because of the ease of disassembly, which typically with integrals can be finicky at best. The way this thing feels and the weight, because not only did they put these carbon fiber overlays that they dovetailed in that took up a bunch of material, they did weight reduction underneath these. And it's ingenious because there's only one screw holding that in, and then it's just dovetailed in, and that dovetail holds it in. There is no play in those. They slide in so neatly and tightly that there is no play. And so, like, if you take the screw out, like, you got to play with it to get this slid out. And so it makes it so light. It gives it such a perfect balance. And it's just a beautiful blade shape on this. I don't cut much with this. I do carry it a lot, but it is incredibly sharp. And I cut some stuff with it, but not stuff, like I don't want to screw it up because it's got a really nice satin. So I'm really picky on what I do with this knife, which is surprising because I got this knife for free from Tashi Barucha. And it was a $550 knife. I bought my Grimsmo Norseman for about $1,000, and I used the shit out of it. I don't know, maybe it's just because I know that knife, and it doesn't have a really fancy satin, and I know how useful it is. I think that's why it gets used so much. But yeah, if you, like, as far as the best, like one of my favorite integrals ever, well, my favorite integral ever, one of the first ones I've ever actually liked, because I usually don't like integrals, and it's this one, the We Knives OAO, designed by Tashi Barucha. And like I said, Tashi sent this one to me as a gift, and I wanted to touch on that because people say that, like, oh, you're going to be biased if you get a free knife. And I got to tell you, I'm much more inclined to not be biased by a free item, like a free knife. I am much more inclined to give a free knife lower marks because I have no skin in the game. Like, if I buy a knife, like if I paid $550 for this knife, I would probably overlook things. And it's called the honeymoon period. Everybody has a honeymoon period when they buy anything new. Anytime they purchase anything new, there's a honeymoon period where you're blind to the problems. Like, you buy a new car, you're blind to the little rattles and squeaks and things like that because you got a bunch of money tied up in it. Titanium Justin, yes, this is 20 CV. And they did a really good job on the heat treat because when I did the sharpening on this, I was like, oh, that's a good heat treat. That's a good solid heat treat on 20 CV coming from a production company. But We Knife Company usually does. But at any rate, when I spend money on something, I'm going to be blinded to some of the things that are wrong with that item just based on the fact I know how much I spent on it. And you're going to be like that for a while. But if I get a knife that comes in that I didn't put any money in, I have no vested interest in it, right? I didn't buy this knife. I didn't design this knife, and I don't work for that company, right? And I tell everybody this. It's like, if you send me something, it's going to get like an honest review. And some companies shy away from that, and then other companies that are like, that's fine. That's what we want. There's no strings attached. We're sending you a knife. You just tell us what you think. And I'm like, okay. 9 times out of 10, those companies have got a very good, they have faith, how am I trying to say this? English, words are difficult. You can just take a good hard look at me wearing red, white, and blue American flag, Go Fast Machines shirt, fucking trucker cap with a hook on it, a beard. I'm not trying to get a job in the Department of Education. Any rate, the companies that have faith in their product are going to be fine with you doing a review, an honest review of their product. Every time. Every time. I have yet to have, except for a couple of like fly-by-night Temu knives companies that have turned me down because I said that they had no say. They're like, well, these are the things we want you to say about the item. And I'm like, keep it. I don't want it. I'm not going to say those things. You can't tell me I'm going to say those things. And I have no faith that the things you're telling me I'm going to say are going to be how I feel about the item. You're telling me what I can't and can't say about an item before I even get it in hand. That's not how things work here at Crazy Sharp. I get an item in, and it gets an honest review. I'm going to tell you right now, this is my knife. And you guys have seen it in a lot of videos. We'll get to this in a minute. But the reason that this is my knife is because I had another one that came in, and I liked it so much that I told a buddy of mine, I'm buying this knife. And he did it so that, I forget how it worked out. We did it so he got the points, but I got my discount. I used my coupon code through a third party. So he used my coupon code. I think that's how it worked. He used my coupon code, and he got the points. So I got the discount. Or no, I got that's what it was. We did it so that I got the affiliate payment, and he got the points through that's what it was. But at any rate, I bought one. I liked it enough that the free one that came in, I'm like, well, I got to have one. And that's why you see it in videos all the time. And we're going to get around to this one because this one has a special place because it's way up there on the list of favorites. And then you got knives like this, the Christie's Sabenza. This is absolutely a knife that this is the second one of these I've owned. I sold one, my original, and within a week regretted it and bought another one. There's, like I've said a bunch of times, there is no way I'm ever getting rid of my Sabenza. It's just one of those knives that I will keep forever because I know that the second I get rid of one of these, I'm gonna turn around and buy another one. And I'm not gonna be able to sell this one for what I paid for it, so I'm gonna have to pay the new price for a new one, which is more than I paid for this one. I paid $410 for this one. I think they're close to $500 now. This is an old 21. I like the way the 21 feels. It's got a different sound and feel to it when it locks up because it doesn't have the ceramic ball interface, which I admit I know it's a better mechanism. I know it's a better lockup and all of that, but there's just some things like the knife I'm gonna go grab in a minute that just have a specific feel, and that's what you want in that knife. So speaking of that, we got to grab this knife, which is way up on my list of favorites, and it's my Grimsmo Norseman. A lot of people, 21 of you here, you're coming in at the right time because this, I can't say it is like my all-time favorite knife, but it is I have to say this is probably the all-time best made knife when it comes down to everything going together and just being a perfect knife. It's got to be this knife. Like if I were to look at the pinnacle of knife making right now, not necessarily just hand grinding and things like that, like just all parts of making a knife taken into consideration, I think that John Grimsmo does pretty much the best job you're going to find out there, period. I could have gotten a Rask. I didn't want the Rask. I wanted this because it's unique, but having had enough of them come in for sharpening, and I carried them and did, you know, when they would come in, I was like, I want it to be unique, but I also want it to be functional. And then after having used a couple of these, this was the best all-around shape that I'd seen in a very long time. A lot like a Graham Razel. Until I got one of these and carried it for a while, and it was on loan, and I was going to refinish it anyway. So I stonewashed the blade, and I refinished the handles, and then did the sharpening. So I got to carry it for a while. That's when I realized that this was super functional, and that's when I started to understand why people like the Graham Razels so much, because they're very similar. You got that forward edge that you can use for stuff like getting up on it almost like a chisel, and then you've got this area here that's got the nice recurve and you can slice through. And then like if you are carrying this, this is still like a snap cut in self-defense. That is going to be brutal. So just a great overall knife design in itself. What's this? Corey said, I just watched TCal Night Stalker sell for $620 on Amazon or on eBay. Crazy, someone wanted that blade at any cost. Yeah. Guys, I saved and looked for 5 years to get this one. And then I have a friend that works at one of the consignment online, and he was to let me know when one came in. He goes, should we put it on a website, or do you want it now? And I was like, no, I want it now. I wanted a reverse honeycomb. I wanted a specific serial number range because they started adding steel lock bar inserts. So this has the double stop pins. So if I get lock rock and blade play, I simply can reach out to them and get the extra pins. Just everything about this is exactly what I wanted, and it was in the right configuration. I re-anodized it. You can see it's got two-tone ano on it, and I don't carry it much these days, because I was carrying it, I was having to sharpen it like every week or two. I was sharpening it. And it's not because of the steel or the heat treat. It's simply because of the amount of use that it got. Guys, hang on a second. I got to grab something real quick. I wanted to see, it might be out here. I wanted to show you something cool, but I don't know if it's going to be, yeah, I did. I did grab it. This is one of my favorite knives. Sorry. Sorry. Did you guys maintain audio the whole time I was gone? What was this? Let me see here. I'm trying to read. Damn right, Megadeth, much better than Metallica, and Dave smokes Kirk. So, brother, I have knives that don't fit my hand, so my EDC blade is a BPS fish knife. I can see that. This knife, this is a really special knife to me, and I love it because it came from somebody that I like as a gift to the channel. I was told I could do whatever I wanted with it, and it's made by somebody I really like, which is TJ, Tony Marfione Jr., TJ over at Heretic Knives. And it's a Medusa switchblade, push button switchblade. This is one of my favorite knives. It's got the unique H clip on it, which was something that they did that they don't do anymore. I love the old original H clip that Heretic Knives used. It actually sits in pocket really well. And for as big and nasty as it looks, it's really comfortable in hand because it's broad, so it spreads out across your hand. Where are you going? So, but it's a switchblade. And it's a decent switchblade. Sometimes switchblades, they'll try to go too heavy. ProTech is famous for going really heavy on the spring. What was this? I missed something here. Oh, no, I didn't. This has just about the perfect spring tension. So it's still enough to open it. It's still enough to be snappy when it opens. You can hear it. It's got some force, but not enough to go too far. It's done in a really nice recurve Tonto. This is just a really cool knife that I absolutely love. I don't carry it very often, mainly because of the finish, because I can't duplicate that finish. I can do a lot of stuff with finishing, but I can't duplicate that finish. I've said a bunch of times that this looks like, remember when we were kids and you get those things that had they were like black sheets with it was black wax with color underneath, and sometimes you wrinkle them and they would, the color would come to the surface and it would look like that. Or like the bottom of a box of crayons. Where did that dog go? Chunk, what are you doing, buddy? What are you doing? And so it's just such a striking knife that there's just no way I could get rid of it. I did carry it enough that I screwed up the pocket clip, as you can see. It's all scuffed up and scratched up. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that I could get with Tony and get a new pocket clip if I wanted. But yeah, as far as switchblades, this is my favorite. I have several switchblades in my collection. This is my favorite because the fact is it's still a useful knife. The problem I have with a lot of the OTF switchblades is that they're not very useful. They're really not all that useful in hand. You know what I mean? They wind up being too thin. The blade is really thick. The handles were weird. They're off center. Out the side switchblades are typically more akin to an actual knife, like to a regular knife, as far as being able to be used. Like the Buck 110, there was a switchblade version of the Buck 110. I don't have one. I'd love to have one. I think that would be cool. But like that's more of a functional type of switchblade. I still don't like them. I think they're kind of gimmicky. I would have loved this knife as much, if not more, if it had like a liner lock or a button lock. So, but now we got to get into some, oh, wait, there's one more. There's one more that's here that spends, oh, there's actually two more. Before we get into stuff that's my favorites because of just aesthetic reasons. All this other stuff has been favorites with the exception of that Bark River. They've been my favorites because of functionality and carry and use. Some of the knives that are in that box over here are just there because they're exceptionally pleasing to look at. But this is one that I never expect to like as much as I do. I never expected to like this knife as much as I do. This is the EMW by Yan Knives. Now, Yan Knives gave me this at a knife show. The designer gave me this at a knife show. They're done by Riat. And when I first saw it a couple times at the table, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. But when you look at it, once you get past, like I kept looking at it from this goofy like Batarang perspective, like, oh, that's fucking weird. And then I got it. They were like, well, we want to send this one with you for review. And I was like, okay. And they're like, what handle materials you want? And I was like, I like micarta, and it had good looking micarta handles. And it comes with a really nice pocket slip for you to carry it because it does not have a pocket clip. And I got it home and I put it in my pocket for a few days. And then I realized I really, really, really like this knife. You've got a big, broad handle that's really comfortable. You've got that area right there where the other blade is nested that you get your thumb up on and really push down and power down into material if you're cutting cardboard and stuff, which this does a very, very good job of. And then you've got the other end, which is a Tonto. Basically the same blade profile as the forward edge, as the forward blade, as the other blade, I mean, but done in a Tonto. You get the same thing. It's that same angle. And I really have found that I carry this knife way more than I ever thought I would. It carries very nicely left-handed because it's ambidextrous, it's double-ended, and you can put the slip in your pocket and then just put this down in your pocket on the left-hand side. It's nice and comfortable. It's not got any hard, sharp edges. It does take up a little bit more space than a knife. Like, I have to admit, like, people are like, oh, it just takes up too much space. The thing is that this leather slip is soft. It doesn't really get in your way when you reach in and grab past it to grab stuff out of your pocket. It doesn't take up any more space than a lot of the flashlights that I carry in my pocket. And it's a very nice way to carry an item that does not have a pocket clip. And then you get into the fact that this has probably the best front flipper action of almost any knife I've ever had come in. I'm not a fan of front flippers. Most of the time I can't do them with my index finger. This one, absolutely one of the best front flippers. And then when you get down to it, this is very, very akin to something that we've seen our, if you're my age, you've seen our fathers carry if they were outdoorsmen, which, muskrat trapper. A double-ended folder like this called a muskrat trapper it had sometimes, most of the time it had two identical blades, nice little thin blades on either end. So when one blade get dull, you could switch over to the other. Very, very similar to a muskrat trapper, but it's been done in a very, very good fashion. Titanium M390, superb knife if you're looking for something to carry that's comfortable to cut with and you can use for a lot of different tasks. What is KC7ABC? What's your recommendation for EDC fixed blade under $200? I just talked about this one earlier. Look and see if you can find, I have a link to Knives Ship Free down below. Knives Ship Free carry the Lon Humphrey Custom Tucson. And I believe these are under 200. I think these are 180 or just right around 200. That would be what I'd check out. Take my link down below, Knives Ship Free. It supports the channel. It doesn't cost you anything at checkout. Go to Knives Ship Free and look up the Lon Humphrey Custom. It's 100% American made. He makes them in Ohio, just outside of my hometown. It's a great knife. I would have never known about it if Zach Schmidt had not sent me this knife for the channel. He told me I could keep it he told me to keep it as a gift. It couldn't go anywhere, and it wouldn't. They're absolutely done beautifully. They're handmade. This was AEBL. It's got about the best heat treat. Well, it's got the best heat treat I've ever seen at AEBL, which I typically don't like. It's done so comfortably, so well. I just, like, for what he's charging for these knives, he's got to be making a lot of them at a time. It is a great knife, and like I said, then it comes with a really, really good custom sheath. You're just not going to go wrong with it. And so knives ship free if you take my affiliate link down below. That would be my highest recommendation for a fixed blade if you're looking for a fixed blade carry for like every day. I know it's a little bigger, but as far as like a small fixed blade, you've got my Sea Snake. I'm always going to recommend that one. I did a design with Artisan called the Sea Snake. It's a small little Wharncliffe. I don't have one here. I'm waiting on mine to come back from my friend's house, and I just gave Scott over at Scab over at Choir Boys Cutlery. I just gave him one. So those were the last ones I had here. I'm letting my buddy borrow mine. He wants to. He wants some ideas as to whether he's going to carry a fixed blade full time or not. And I was like, well, don't spend money. Just borrow mine. See if it fits what you want. So those were all knives that, for functional reasons, well, no, I forgot about this one. This is another one of my favorite knives. This is the Lamia by Alex Steingraber over at Steingraber Performance Knives. This is just probably one of the, like, this has got, I have to say, for all around like work and cutting purposes, this is the best American made knife you're going to find. And at 100% is because Alex did such a good job with the machining of getting this down with behind the edge thickness that maintains a thin behind the edge pretty far back into the blade, which means this just glides through material. I mentioned it when I did my last live feed. I had this out. I literally took this and put it on a stone, and I took this. I can't see. There's something on the blade. Sorry, I can't read very well without my reading glasses on. I took this and I knocked the edge completely off of it on a stone and still cut a bunch of cardboard for the video with no edge on it. It cuts without the edge because of the edge geometry and behind the edge thickness. Then when I sharpened it up, just insane how good this was. And then this, Alex gave me this after I did the video. So this wasn't like somebody gave me this knife and it got a good review. It had been here for a very long time because I kept misplacing it and forgetting to send it back to him. And so this, he was like, you know what, just keep it. It's in crew wear. I don't even make them in crew wear anymore. So this just absolutely has been something that spends a lot of time in my pocket just because it cuts so well. So, but I have a case here that has, oh, this one. Yeah, this, you can't go wrong with this. Just any Swiss Army knife. The original multi-tool. People are like, oh, that's not a multi-tool. Leatherman's a multi-tool. I was like, bro, this is the original multi-tool. You can tell me all you want. It's not a multi-tool. This is the original multi-tool. And they're like, well, what about a Leatherman? I was like, a Leatherman's good. It's got like pretty much most of the same things you get on this. I was like, but you know what? I've never heard myself ask. You know what? Hey, get in here. House. In. He's out in that garage by himself. I've been places and things like that, and I pull out my Swiss Army knife and use it for shit. You know what I've never heard myself say in a scenario where I would pull out my Swiss Army knife? Man, I wish I had a fucking pair of pliers. No, I've never said that. So why am I going to add that to my thing? I'm trying to see what the temperature is out here. It's only 86 in the studio. I may do some filming later after the air starts to move and cool down, once the sun shifts to the other side of the house. So yeah, that's something I've never heard myself say. Never once have I been anywhere and been like, oh shit, I wish I had a pair of pliers. Now watch me wind up in that scenario and only have my Swiss Army knife. But a Swiss Army knife, absolutely can't go wrong. Cannot go wrong with a Swiss Army knife. Having a Swiss Army knife in your pocket is going to take care of a lot of the little things. You know what? I find myself using my Swiss Army knife for the most As a content creator, I have light mounts. I have 4 lights. Each one has their own individual mount. I have 2 tripods, and they have their own little mounts that depending on whether I'm using my new camera, the attachment for that, or if I'm using the phone, the attachment for this. They all have like flathead screws that screw the piece in so that you can attach them to the tripod and all that. Absolutely, I have this right next to me or in my watch pocket every time in the studio, because I know that I'm gonna have to adjust something with a screw, with a flathead or a Phillips screw, so that my lights are straight, and so I tighten everything down and all that. I know that I'm gonna need this. And so it is probably one of my most used tools. It really is. This gets used for all the other knives that I have. I think this gets more actual daily use out in the studio than my actual knives do. And I don't very often use the knives on this. Typically I'm constantly using the flathead here, and then some of the little set screws on stuff are really small. The little flathead on here. Constantly using this in the studio as a content creator to tighten up light stands, tripods, and attachments. Constantly. It's one of the most important tools I have. So I have to say, this is probably, even if it's not my favorite of favorite knives, it's probably the most used knife I have. It's always on my workbench. It's always at the filming station. It's where I can just grab it. Like, it never gets put away. And if it does get put anywhere, it's in my pocket. So, Weld and Carry says hello. Yeah, that Swiss Army knife, it's regardless of all the other knives, that's definitely getting the most use because of the fact that it is. Do you have a Leatherman arc? I told you, I don't know. I don't carry a Leatherman because I've never been in a scenario when I needed a multi-tool that this didn't fit the bill. I've never been anywhere and thought I need a pair of pliers. Like, oh, if I only had a fucking pair of pliers. Never once in any of the travels where I've had this in my pocket and it fit the bill have I ever thought I needed a pair of pliers. Because you're not going to use a pair of pliers to change a tire. You're not going to use a pair of pliers to do much anything. Now, there are certain scenarios. There are certain scenarios for certain people. What's up? What you trying to do? You got bad breath. You got bad breath, buddy. It's okay. It's okay. I still love you. So yeah, I mean, if I was working a job where I had to when I was working a construction job, we had construction fences and they were poorly put together. It was just like chicken wire with posts, and you use a piece of, and you would twist wire on it, and sometimes that would break. Yeah, you might want like some rebar wire and a Leatherman to carry with you on something like that, but I didn't do that very often. Oh, what are you doing? Ow! Don't bite my ribs. Shithead nipped me back here. What are you doing? Puppy butt. So yeah, I have to say that this is the most useful tool in my shop. Now, as far as getting into some knives that are just like favorites for other reasons. Jesus Christ. Chunk, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing, sir? You're interrupting my live feed. That's going to go off the rails real quick, I can tell. Would you knock it off? Would you knock? I just cleaned all of this before Mama and the daughter get back. So there are knives that I have that are simply vicious. He's a vicious beast. There are knives that I have that are favorites simply because. Can you please stop? Can you please stop? Can you? For just a little bit? I gotta stop. There are knives that I have that have an emotional attachment to them There's emotional reasons, there's nostalgia and things like that. I have knives that were my father's and things like that. I didn't go dig those out because they're in a specific storage area and they're sealed up and they've been oiled and I don't want to get them out. It's really humid. A lot of those knives are more high carbon. Guest star. Guest star. Hi. Actually, the real star. Hello from Brazil, Bruno says. Chunk, you're on my, hey, listen, you're gonna break the microphone cord. You can't get, no, stop. He gets to be too much sometimes. So there's a couple knives like, this that were specific gifts from friends that like just hold their place. But the fact is, I wanted this specific knife so badly, not just this Fortis A. I wanted a Fortis A with this specific blade finish. I wanted the Fortis A because it had the specific milling pattern and it had the company logo. So this was something I had wanted. I just didn't have enough money for. So one day my little buddy Nico shows up at the shop. I was hanging out at the shop and he was like, hey, I got something for you. And I was like, he's like, it's a gift. The dog just fell off the couch and slammed into my footstool that you guys are currently sitting on. And he's like, I got this for you. And I was like, bro, you didn't have to do it. He found me one and then I customized it. So this was a gift. What is this? Richard Throgmorton, what is my most sentimental knife? I have a knife. It's out in the studio. I'm not going to dig it out because it's in that case with a bunch of the other stuff. It's all sealed up with desiccate and it's been really humid. I have a little Camillus number 47 silver sword from Camillus in New York. It was probably a $20 knife at the time my dad got it for, which that wasn't cheap back then, but he got it for me when I was like 6 years old. So I've had that knife for 44 years almost, 43 years right now. I've had that knife. J.S. Bladecraft. What's going on, Joe? So I've had that knife for going on 50 years. And it's the most important knife in my collection because it was a gift. It was the first knife my dad ever got for me. These other ones that we're talking about, some of these fall into that category. But like I said, this was just a gift. My buddy Nico knew I wanted this specific blade finish, which it's kind of fingerprinted right now, but you could see really a unique finish on it. It's not mirror polish, but it is mirror polished. And if you look at it close enough, which you can't do it from this angle and with the lights the way they are, you can almost see the grain structure of the steel in it. You can almost see the grain structure of the steel in it. And let me see, can I get a good, let me wipe it off here real quick. And we'll see if I can't. Can you see on here how even though it's really polished, you can still see, can I zoom in on it? You can still see like little grain structure. Now that's where I was wiping it on my pants. But you can kind of see that it's still, I don't know, it's a very unique finish. And it took them a week of tumbling that in synthetic sapphires at a place. A place did this for him for like a week. Any good knives from your buddy Animal? No, Animal doesn't have any good knives. Animal is famous for buying knives that I think are substandard. He and I don't agree on knives really so much. I mean, we kind of do, but like on brands. Like I'm not a big fan of Tops knives because I don't like their designs. He loves Tops, but he and I agree a lot more on firearms. But yeah, that's one of my favorites. I have another, where'd I put it? I didn't put it back. There it is. This one, I bought this one directly from Chris and Elliot. This is the original Archbishop. I got this one just because of that pocket clip. It was insane when I saw it the first time. I still get chills when I look at it. One of the most striking knives I own, one of the ones that when I show them in videos, people love it. The original Archbishop, they've done the Archbishop 2.0. I think they did a 3.0. So yeah, just really, really striking. And the finish has held up really well. The finish on it has held up really well. It's a synthetic, I'm sorry, it's a ceramic coating that's on it. I don't use this knife heavily. I have in the past, and it's held up. And as you can see, the spine is kind of scratched up. I've used it for stuff. Pikal, George, Pikal. Pikal absolutely is the way to go. This one is one of my favorites of all time because it was yet another gift from Chris, Elliot, and Nico. Well, for Elliot, Nico, and Tino. And it's all hand carved. It's got the black ceramic on it. It's got the inlay. But this was something that I always wanted one of the Master Blasters, the Ferrum Forge Knife Works Master Blasters. I missed out. They only did 200 of them. And Elliot went around the shop. He was talking with Nico and my buddy Tino, and they're like, "Hey, we want to get Mike a Master Blaster." And so Elliot went around the shop. They were doing it as a gift. Elliot went around the shop and found all the parts that he needed from like spare parts. There was only a couple of blades left that were usable. Some of them had flaws. He did some repair work on stuff and then hand carved all of this with a Dremel. That is a copper inlay that was cut in the groove there and then pounded in and then hand carved with a Dremel, including the pocket clip and the back and all that. And then they gave it to me as a gift. Specific finish on a blade. And I've used this knife a lot. This is a knife that is absolutely one of my favorites because it's a very good knife to carry. It's an easy knife to carry. As beautiful it is, it's done in a fashion where using it is going to make it more, using this knife is going to make it look better, if you know what I mean. So 20 CV steel, Joe, titanium, copper inlay, and the more you carry this and the more you use it, the more it's going to get a worn look to it, which is going to go right in line with the pattern. And as a matter of fact, this is going in my pocket. Hasn't been in my pocket for a few weeks. Other favorite knives that I have. Oh, somebody else was asking about Finch knives. Do I have any carbon steel knives? I do. My dad's old stuff is all been oiled and put in a box with a bunch of desiccate because it's really humid here. It was, it's been like 80% humidity at night and like 75 to 80 during the day. I think it was like 92% humidity last night when I went to bed. So all those are in a box, a sealed box with bags of desiccate and coated with oil. I'm not going to go dagging, but I do have some carbon steel knives. Carbon steel does take a very, very good edge. They hold up really well. They patina well. But right now what I'm afraid of is that I'm close enough to the ocean that we get some salt dust in the air, and there's like salt dust on stuff this time of year. So those have been put away. Winston Cobretti, Emler, when it starts to cool down, let's eat Mexican food, drink like pirates, and appreciate our knives, and watch action movies in the studio. Yeah, if I'm not working nights again, yeah, we can do that. Depends. I'm laid off right now, guys, if you don't know. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. If I had my bell, I would ring it. That's why you're getting as many live feeds as yours, because I got laid off. I'm going to do a video about how my hobby got me fired, because carrying a knife is the reason I'm laid off. It's not the company's fault. Don't blame the company. But speaking of Finch knives, somebody was asking, Finch knives are great. This is the Finch knife Stinger. It's very similar to the Reciprocity in the way it's built. Their knives over at Finch Knives are really, really are. I would recommend them all day and twice on Sunday. This is the Runtley XL. This is a super awesome knife. No, I didn't. I haven't gotten a chance to talk to Animal in a while. And then this is the buffalo tooth. All of their knives have been great. So whoever it was that was asking about Finch knives earlier, the Reciprocity is a great knife. I would recommend picking it up. So other favorite knives. I got this one. This is one of my favorites just because of how cool it is. It's another hand-carved Elliott Williamson, Fair and Forged Knife Works. Looks like a fish. All that was hand-carved. This one, I had a guy that had won it in a lottery, and then he broke the lock bar. And while it was in getting repaired from Elliott, he was like, hey, man, I won it in a lottery. He's like, I didn't pay hardly anything for it. He goes, if you want that knife, I will sell it to you for what I paid for it. And I was like, okay. And so he got it for $300. Because he had entered into a lottery and he bought a bunch of lottery tickets. And so he only, like the guy lotteried off the knife for tickets. And so I think it was like $5 or $10 pop. He bought $300 worth of tickets and he charged me what he had tied up in the tickets for it. This is the Fair and Forged Knife Works spinner. It's a collaboration between Mike Gavick and Fair and Forged Knife Works. Really one of their most striking knives, and the fact that it's a hand-carved one kind of makes it a favorite. But I mean, I've got some other knives in here that definitely are further up my favorites scale. Let me look here and see, as long as I'm not missing any. Oh, yeah, here's one. This is one of my favorites because it's what I would want in a Benchmade 940. But Benchmade refuses to do it, so this is hollow ground, 20 CV. The handles are really, really comfortable. It's got a hollow grind on this, which means it actually does cut. The action on it is great. The blade feel in hand, there's no blade play like you get on every Benchmade with an axis lock. And it's just really attractive. And it's the same price as a Benchmade 940. So, Kutika says, my favorite is K390, Little Temperance from Spyderco. Such a great chunky little thing. I understand why people like the Spyderco knives. I just don't like most of their designs. They just don't appeal to me. My buddy Tino currently has one that we're gonna get to see on the channel before too long once he gets out of his honeymoon period with it. And the dog had something on his fur and it dropped it all over the floor. Anthony Trojan, that sucks. What, you mean the work? Yeah, I was pretty happy with that job, and somebody complained that I had a knife at work at a security job, if you can believe it. The company didn't want to let me go, but the fact was project management. The project manager was like, no, we don't want him here. So that means I couldn't be there. So while the company didn't want to let me go, they kind of were obligated. They just really didn't have a choice, so they laid me off. So I'm on unemployment. I don't like it. I've never taken unemployment once in my life. I've always made do with either the YouTube channel and working with affiliates. I had some sponsors for a while. And then just the kindness of everybody that for a long time was donating super chats, which I'm not trying to like guilt you guys into super chats. I understand what the economy's like. I don't drop super chats on Jared's videos anymore either. So I absolutely understand it. So, but that absolutely was how it went. But then once the revenue dropped off, YouTube revenue dropped off, and it really made it difficult for everyone. And you've heard a lot of content creators talk about it. And so I was actively looking for a job from the beginning of the year. I got hired, well, since middle of last year. I got hired, and I was really happy with it. I was there for 4 months, and then somebody complained about a knife. I'll get more into that in an actual video that I'm going to film about it, because I have my own thoughts on it. So yeah, the Solar Storm. This is the Solar Storm from Richard. You're going to have to hit me up on like a DM or something on my Instagram, because I don't know where you guys' shop is. I'm in San Diego. I think he said that your shop was outside of Las Vegas. I don't know. So you'd have to hit me up on that so that I even know. I mean, there's always a chance I can make a trip out there. I'm gonna try and make a trip up to one of the oldest knife shows or knife shops in California. At any rate, Oaksworks Solar Storm. Eric gave me this one. He gave me a bunch of knives. All of the Oaksworks knives are great. This is the Osprey. Now, Eric has given me all these knives. And so you guys know, like, knives that come in to the channel, a lot of them get slated as giveaways. And if you're a paying member, I apologize. I know I owe you guys like 3 giveaways. I've been depressed and I just haven't had the, well, if I get, then I have to go to the post office. It's just a whole big thing. At any rate, so Eric gave me all these knives that I'm showing you because Eric and I get along really well and I like his knives. These knives are another one of those cases where these would have gotten really good reviews whether or not he gave me these for free. If I had bought these knives, I would be every bit as happy. But these are great. This is the Oaksworks EDX Osprey. Great little knife, and they're really similar size, just different blade shapes. Also M390 titanium. This one's got blue G10 inlays. This one has micarta. So when we went through this, all 3 knives that I have that Eric sent me, they have a different inlay material because I wanted to just kind of just show all the different things that he had. So this one's done in, this is the Lantra, and it's done in titanium, blue fat carbon fiber, and M390. So it's this one is a little bit shorter, a little bit stubbier, but it's a great knife. But those, now we've digressed. We have to get back into my favorites. So there's a few knives here that really fall into a favorites category in this case. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll hit you up after this. I'll send you a text there, Sergeant Rock. This one is the Dirk Pinkerton Terramundi Knives warning button. So Dirk Pinkerton designed this for Beyond EDC, their Terramundi line. So, and guys, if you're here and you haven't dropped a like, I'd really appreciate it. Not asking for super chats, but I would like a like. It's free. Just walk over, touch the like button. This one's really cool because super functional cutter, great blade profile, one of the best Warren clips you're going to get, and then it has this superb pivot lock. So the pivot is a button, and so just, you can't go wrong with it. It's just, it is the best and most fidgety thing you're going to find, and it's still really good flipper action. But when it comes down to it, this cuts like a laser beam. It is just insane how that cuts. And if you guys, my little buddy Nico is selling these. You can hit him up via DM, Helpful Hobbit on Instagram. Hit him up there. And I did a community post. He's got like 9 of these. David was having problems with the company. There was money to be recouped, and he was like, I just don't have it. Just whatever knives you've got, if you can sell them, just keep whatever. I do believe that Beyond EDC will be going away. And I think that's this is another reason I'm not filming. They're doing flight operations all the time. F-35s are flying over. So yeah, you can get one of these through him. So why are there only 9 people here? Like that's not the numbers I wanted to see. But yeah, that's. Hold on a second. I just got a message from my daughter. Hold on. Please bear with me. Yeah, it's a great knife. And it's one of my favorite newer designs that I've seen. So, give me a second here. Yeah, so that was this Pinkerton design warning button, because the button, I love it. And it's not that it's any better than a regular button lock. It's just that it's cleaner. So instead of having a pivot, here we go. Instead of having your pivot and then the button next to it with a cutout, yeah, it's more complex to take apart and everything, but the look you get from it is clean. And people look at it and they're like, wait, where's the lock? So they'll flip it and they're like, wait, how do I unlock? And I'm like, it's the pivot. And they're like, oh, that's neat. And then just overall, behind the edge profile, just one of the best looking Wharncliffe blades I've had come in ever. So other favorites, we'll save this one for a little bit. This one is a favorite, one of my favorites. This is the Horizon D. I bought this, was the first, let's see here. I'd already had a Sebenza, so I already knew that there were high-end production knives. But this was the first of the newer school of high-end production. This was the Reat Horizon D. I pre-ordered this before, like it was a pre-order. And so I got it, and I think these were $450 in 2015 when I bought this. Same time I bought a Microtech DOC and a Whale Shark and 4 Ultratechs. I had more money than I knew what to do with back then. I was working a job for Lockheed Martin. But this came in and I immediately just fell in love with this knife, the overall styling, the way it feels in hand, the execution, materials, just the action, and this is just got one of the best actions of any knife. This is still, I say to this day, 2015 when I bought this, this is still the best production knife I ever bought. The best production knife I have ever bought was the Reat Horizon D. The pocket clip was just gorgeous. I refinished everything, polished the carbon fiber a little bit, polished all of this, and then re-anodized blue and gold. It's just M390 blade that is just ridiculously sharp. It holds an edge incredibly well. Just has been all around the best production knife I've ever purchased. And then right next to it is one of my favorite knives. Let me know what you guys think about this, because this one is polarizing, because some people absolutely hate the pocket clip on this knife, and it's because it's the Chavez 229 with the big skull clip. Absolutely love it. It is a big, beefy, monstrous, overbuilt knife, but then when you get down to the blade, it's ground nice and thin, very functional. It's that beastly look, but then that delicate edge that still cuts really well. Reat executed these perfectly. I have to say, and I've told Ramon this, as much as I love the original 228, the one that he did that was the mid-tech, and he did it himself, and he built them, and they were almost like custom. They were so thick behind the edge. They didn't cut well. This is absolutely the opposite of that. This thing is just insane. But like I said, let me know how you feel about this, because some people hate that clip. How do you feel about the skull clips on the Chavez knives? We're gonna take a little minute here and talk about this with the 9 of you that are watching that aren't interacting. Let me know. Guys, I'm not going any further until you tell me your thoughts on whether that pocket clip is too much or if that's awesome. Because I personally love it. I'm just curious about what's the majority of people think. And since there's 14 of you here, maybe you could drop a comment and let me know what you think, because I'm just going to keep doing this. I want to know what you think about this. And if you want to see the rest of the knives, well, Winston, I already know you like it. You like the skull clip, says Anthony. I dig it. I dig it. They're now your favorite. The thing is, like, people complain about, oh, that pocket clip it's garish and this and that. It's actually really comfortable to carry in pocket because it's a broad clip, so the knife stays stable. It doesn't move. It doesn't walk. And then when you get it in hand, because it is so wide, there's no real point that's a hot spot. Even though there's kind of like some hard edges on this and it looks sharp and everything, it's broad enough that when you get it in hand, it's a very comfortable clip. It's like the H clip on this. Like, people complain about the, hey, it's too big, this and that. but it's actually really comfortable because all of that pressure that you would feel when you bear down on that pocket clip is spread out a wider distance. It's not too thin. It's just great. I love it. And then the action on this one, just superb. And I love slab titanium handles. And then I re-anodized this. Now, before this knife was mine, this was my buddy's, and we did this for him on this pocket clip and the backspacer. It's an orange peel and bronze ano. He gave me the knife as a gift because he never carried it. It had never been in his pocket. Like, he bought it, we did the modification on it, and it went in his knife case and never left. And he's like, I never carry it. I'm gonna give it to you. So it was a birthday present, I believe. But yeah, it's just a great knife because of that. Like, these were just plain titanium matching. And I think just that little pop of color just gives it a good look. So is it good at stabbing? Not so much. It's more of this is more of an outdoor style cutting blade. We don't have a tendency to stab here. That's more of a thing that happens in Europe to children. We have a lot less stabbing going on. Another knife, one of my favorites. Yeah, we'll still save. We'll keep going. This one is the first Wii knife I ever bought, and I love it. It's discontinued. It's one of my favorite knives ever that they ever made. This is the 601, and this is almost a traditional Japanese style tanto. You can see there's no distal taper on that. The only taper you get is where they grind down into the tip and maintain that edge angle all the way through the material. And it gives you one of the most robust tips on a knife. Like, it's going to hold up very well to stabbing into materials and things like that. But it also is a very good cutter. I just sharpened this one recently because it hadn't been done in a while. It is the heat treat that they did on their S35 VN on these. Just perfect. Perfect. It was just the right hardness and everything to give you a good edge retention and things like that. So it's just, hey, Lacey, yeah, I'm not working nights. I got laid off. So with me not working nights, I'm not doing them late at night anymore. Rubicon 81, what's going on? I see a bunch of people that are in and out of these lives now that used to be paying members, which I do understand. Like I said, with the whole not dropping, if people aren't dropping super chats, I know how it is. I know how it is. Luckily, since I got laid off, I still qualify for unemployment. So hopefully the company's bringing me back at the end of August. Yeah, this thing is great. This thing is really well balanced. It's futuristic looking. It's cool enough to have that cool factor, still functional enough for day-to-day carry and use. It's gonna be really robust because of the way it's ground. And then, like I said, their S35 VN that We Knife Company did, just some of the best heat treat I've gotten on it. Let's see here. Hello. So that is Mesut Ken Gunner. Do you know Sarume Knives, which is produced in Turkey? I do not. I do not. So, hello, Stonehands, EDC and Lace. Thank you. I hope they bring me back soon. It was a bullshit reason for me to fight. I'm not sure whether it was that I was cutting my food and I had a knife, or if I shot a short and someone walked in. Possibility on both. Back to my favorite knives. We already hit that one. Let's see here. Do I have a knife in my pocket that I was going to talk about? No. But I do have a couple more here. So this one is one of the cooler, newer knives that I've had come in. This was Winston Cobretti, the guy that dropped the $10 super chat earlier. I had done a video about one of these, and then he got a couple because he got to handle one here at the house because he's kind of local. He comes by maybe every other couple months or so. And he got to handle the one that I had here from Jared. This is the Meerkat M in M390 and white G10. And the reason I like it so much is it's unique. It's smaller, but it doesn't feel like it gives up anything, and it's just a really good cutting platform. It's one of the most unique ones because it comes down from here. It doesn't have a finger choil. The finger choil is all the way back here, but you're up on it like this in this big area, and it feels really secure, really easy to use. It's almost like a skinning style blade that you have so much control, and you can get way up on it and use it, and it's just comfortable in every one of the grips I would hold it in. And it just carries really, really well. So it's a smaller knife. It's only like 3.5 finger grip, just barely 3.25 finger grip for me on this knife. But it doesn't feel too small. It feels well balanced. It feels bigger than it actually is. That's what she said. Depends on where it's at. But the action on it is really, really good. And then you've just got this brilliantly done blade. The only thing that I can say that I don't like about it is the fact, like if you did want this ambidextrous, you would basically have to, I want to read these here. Lace says, I just got to handle the Bodacious from Spyderco, and while I don't like the Shaman, I really like the Bodacious. I don't like the Shaman either. I don't like most of the Spyderco designs. Messit Ken Gunner, it says he likes this one. But for a smaller knife, like up in this pinch grip like this, it's a full finger grip or full hand grip, and I'm across it and like in that pinch grip. Or if I'm in here, up in that, it's great. Well, there's only 10 people here, Lacey. It says, I don't know. I think it's a weird thing to try and figure out the whole, how many people are watching in this vertical view, because it only shows people that are watching the actual live versus the people that are watching on a shorts feed. So, but yeah, if you want to drop a like, that would be great. I appreciate you reminding people. Yeah, this thing, great liner. Like I was saying, the only thing is the way it's built, the pocket clip screw is part of the retention for like this nested liner. It's not a full liner. So this pocket clip screw actually screws into the lock liner. That's basically that pocket clip screw, and the screw in front of it underneath the pocket clip are the only things holding the lock bar in. So you can't flip it, which I think they kind of missed out on that, because for them, they would have to make a left-handed model to appeal to the left-handed crowd. Now, I have to say, in all honesty, at this point, people are like, why don't they make left-handed knives? I'm like, the same reason there's only one company that makes a left-handed chainsaw, and they don't make left-handed scissors or pencil sharpeners anymore. Remember when we were kids and there was a left-handed pencil sharpener? There was one at either end of the chalkboard, or maybe I'm just that old. There was, on the right-hand side of the chalkboard, a pencil sharpener on the chalk tray. And on the other end, there was another one. And that's because if you were right-handed, you went to the right-hand side because you could go on this. And if you go down to the other end, you could use your left hand because it was a left-handed pencil sharpener. I'm not joking. There were left-handed scissors. There were red and green-handled scissors. They may still make those. But companies realized that the left-handed, I'm going to turn this around and get into something almost political. Companies realized that they were dumping all this money into, we're going to talk about left-handed knives for a little bit. I'm going to go make another cup of coffee. They were dumping a lot of money into 10% of the population. And that 10% of the population, only a small percentage of those people were going to purchase knives. So making knives for left-handed people, a lot of times would result in knives sitting unsold because while they made 10% of their knives to account for 10% of the population being left-handed, that 10% of the population wasn't necessarily going to buy that knife anyway. And so they were making knives for 1% of 10%. So, yeah, I see 15 people too, Louis, but the thing is, that's, like I said, the way the shorts feed interacts on your, my belt is too loose. I had to tighten my belt up. The way that the live feeds on the short, on this vertical wind up being is that they wind up being on the shorts feed as well. I want more coffee. So, which is why I don't understand why companies market to 1% of the population. And yes, I'm talking about the LGBTQ community. I'm like, hey, look, you've already got your rights. There's nothing you can't do that everyone else can do. Why are we tailoring the world to 1% of the population when we don't even make things for left-handed people who account for 10% to 11% of the population, depending on what numbers you're looking at? So, but yeah, that's the reason. That's the reason. 2A Dave is here. What's up, Chicken Dick? That's the reason you don't find a lot of left-handed knives. So what has happened is they've went to they've went to doing things ambidextrous, which makes sense. There's lock mechanisms that are ambidextrous, and then all you need then is a reversible pocket clip. Companies that do an ambidextrous lock mechanism and then not do a reversible pocket clip is one of the silliest things I've seen, because then you are excluding left-handed people. So it's, what did Lace say here? Unsold indeed, with thousands of knives I've sharpened for people. Out of those thousands of knives, maybe 15 left-handed knives. Chris and Elliot used to do pre-orders for left-handed knives. They would do a complete left-handed knife. That was a left-handed lock bar and everything. But it was an order item, and it added 10%. They added 10% price to it, and they would do those last. And so out of a run of 200 knives, there would probably be anywhere between, 5 and 10 of those 200 that got sold as left-handed. But that was something that you specified when you ordered your knife, and you were told, like, we do these last. So we do all the other knives first, because then we have to retool the entire shop, and then we do all of the left-handed ones last. Because those were the last ones, because they were a small batch. So they would always do overages, and so the left-handed knives, once they got the total numbers, then the left-handed knives were done as a separate batch, which meant they did a small batch from their manufacturer of however many of the left-handed knives. And that's why it was a 10% extra, because it wasn't a big thing, a big order. I'm in Minnesota for the American Edge Knife Show. Brian Winter is going to be there, so I'm hoping to buy his Factor. The Factor is a great, great knife. Dave got called into work again. Bladed Ginger is here, sets up. I'm seeing some people show up. So I remember when Best Tech did a lefty, it never sold. Yeah. I thought Rogan carried a gold. I don't know. Let's see here. Yeah, if it's a pre-order type deal, I can see it. Well, like I said, they would have to wait until the entire order was done, but they would order all the parts they needed for a 200-piece run, right? Because then, regardless of lefties and things like that, and they would order all the parts they needed and overage in case a blade got ruined, in case a scale got ruined. That way, they still could sell all 200 knives even if there were problems. So they would usually account for an additional 10% and then an additional 10% of materials to make lefties. But once all the orders were done, that's when they would post the order for the lefties, once all of the other things were done, because they could go ahead and get that stuff done way ahead of time. Before they ever even dropped the order, they could get their parts blown out and all that stuff. And then at the end, after all the orders, then they could get the lefties cut out. And it made sense because if they didn't have any lefties, they weren't out anything. Like if they had ordered a bunch of lefty parts ahead of time, they'd be out. So it was unique to see them do lefties because all the other knives would be done. I still haven't made my coffee. I am currently drinking. The Montana Knife Co. pieces. That's fine. I mean, he blew them up. That's great. I would love to get shot. Elon Musk liked one of my posts on X. I was like, well, talk about making my day. Currently, I am drinking the Coffee Brand Coffee Roaster's Choice Papua New Guinea Korofru. Anyway, it's one of their coffees. This stuff is great. That's what's currently getting ranked. Yeah, it makes sense to put that additional income and not put themselves at risk. Yeah, so like what people don't understand are like, oh, you get like getting a knife water jetted out and then you get your blades ground. You just got to put screws in it. It's not that easy. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. Yeah, he liked my post. I was like, I was like, of all the of all the millions and millions and millions of responses he gets every day, he saw mine. I was like, I'm pretty cool with it. So favorite knives, there's a couple over there that we're going to talk about that are my favorite knives. And a couple of them, I got to pee. And I'm going to have to disconnect my microphone. Hiking with a Viking. You guys need to stay just for a second. I'll be right back. I know you can still hear me, but I'm going to walk away because I just disconnected my microphone because that made me have to pee. I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. I'm back. Whew. No, it's not that. It's not that I had to pee every 2 hours. I have had a lot. Let me see. Okay, you guys still hear me? All right, we're good. I think we're good. I can see the levels on my. Here's the cool thing about these microphones. I don't think I've ever showed you. I can see whether I'm transmitting and things like that. This is the receiver unit, and I'm wearing the transmitter unit. It's attached to my pocket. So this, I can actually see the volume levels and see all that stuff. So I didn't forget, when I was in the Navy, they taught me not to pee on my hands. I got news for you. My dick is probably the cleanest part of my body. Because I took a shower this morning and then immediately locked it up in an underwear vault. So, and I'm not cooking anything for anyone. Who cares? Actually, there's no soap in the bathroom. I have not put the soap. Just to make you guys happy, since there's no hand soap in the bathroom, I'll wash my hands out here. There honestly is, I've got to dig out, I got to fill up the hand soap bottle before my wife gets home. So, the hand soap bathroom in the hand soap bottle is full. Is that better? Is that better? Roger, solid copy. Yeah, I did. Well, I mean, it is. Everything else is pretty much exposed to the outside elements. Like that is the only part of my body that has 2 layers of clothing protecting it. It's inside my underwear, inside my jeans. And I try to take, that's my favorite organ. That's my favorite part of my body. I try to take good care of it. It gets some special attention. It's well, especially with the wife being in Japan for 2 months, it's well moisturized. Any rate, yeah, this did take a tangent. Things do have a tendency to take a tangent. Things take a tangent when people like Hiking with a Viking, Lacey, and 2A Dave show up. Things get sidetracked, and my ADHD definitely is brought to the surface. Coffee stir. There's soap on my hands. I caught a whiff of the fragrance of the soap on my hands when I got it close to my mouth when I stirred the coffee. Okay. So now we're back in here. And we will continue to talk about some of my favorite knives. Now the last couple, this next one is really, this next one's really, really special. I use dish soap to wash my hands. It's got that really strong fragrance. And so when I got the coffee stirrer and I licked it off, I could smell it on my hands, and it just made it taste like soap. That's why I don't like using that, but I have not put the unscented. I haven't put the unscented soap back in the hand soap box. So this next knife is really, really special. It's not that it's my favorite knife, but it's absolutely one of those incredibly special knives that have a deeper meaning for me. So I don't know how many of you guys remember that I was friends with, fuck, why can't I think of his name? I completely brain farted, but I was really good friends with Elijah, and I can't think of his last name, and I think I'm blocking it out because it's a painful memory. A really, really good knife designer, a lot of friends with a lot of us. Somebody help me out with the last name. I've had a lot of head trauma in my life, which explains a lot of it, but I was really good friends with him, designed the Arrakis and a bunch of other knives. Jesus Christ, it's gonna fucking drive me nuts. Elijah Isham, there we go. Thank you. I've blocked this bad memory out. So I hate dish soap. I can smell it and taste it no matter how well the dishes are rinsed. I use at any rate. So it's Elijah Isham. He was a really good friend of mine. We were pretty close. We talked all the time. He was supposed to come out here and all this stuff. If you guys remember, Elijah passed away. And it was a very sad situation, and it's been a couple years now. And but I was trying to get him out here. So I was at Blade Show West, the first Blade Show West, the very first one. They had it in Portland before they started doing it in Salt Lake City. They did it once out here in Long Beach, and I dug that because that was within driving distance. I didn't have to fly because I hate to fly. So I was there at the first one, and Elijah had a knife in his pocket, and he was like, "Hey man, can you sharpen this for me? I've got a chip in the blade." And I said, "Yeah, no problem." And he pulls the knife out of his pocket, and I was like, "Good God, that is way nicer of a knife than I expected you to be handing me." And he handed me this. It's a Diskin Revolution full custom, done in polished M390, white G10, titanium, and then a carbon fiber backspacer, and it has one of Diskin's hidden switchblade mechanisms in it. And he sent this home with me, and I sharpened it. And I sent him the pictures, I sent him the stuff, and I was like, I just need to know where to send it. He goes, oh, I'm in between places right now. And if you guys ever were friends with Elijah Isham, you know he did not ever have a set address. You never knew where the fuck he was going to be from week to week. So I told him, I was like, got it done. Just let me know where you want me to send it. He goes, oh, I'm in between places right now. I'm probably going to be staying here for a while, so I'll get you that address when I get there. I waited a little bit, didn't get an address. I call him and he goes, oh yeah, I left that place. He's like, I was there for a little while. I was like, he basically would couch surf the country and the world. Like he went to Europe with, the guys from, who did he go with? I can't remember. He went with some knife maker. I can't remember who it was that he went to Europe with. And then a bunch of other stuff. So he was constantly across the world. He was up learning from the guys at Touch Knives. And just basically, he just went around the country and he picked things up. And he just went from place to place and was just working with people for a while. And he'd take off. He was just a rolling stone. He was like the epitome of that dude that just never had a set address, just was constantly just going from place to place, and he made money on his knife designs. And so I could never get in touch with him. So at one point he was like, I'll tell you what, I'm coming out to, he's like, I'm going to come out to San Diego. I was like, cool. I was like, well, I'll just give you the knife when you get out here. And he goes, bro, you've had that knife. Just keep it. He's like, just keep it. Like, you've had that knife longer than I have. And I was like, well, it's just been in a case waiting to go home with you. And he goes, I don't need it. Keep it. Just keep it. He's like, you've had it this long. He's like, I forgot I even owned it. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk you out of it. I'm going to give you your knife back when you come out here. He was supposed to come out, and we had talked about it. It was going to be like a fall, like autumn kind of thing. He was going to come out. We were going to go around San Diego. We were going to go visit Firm Forge Knife Works. We were going to talk with some other guys. We were going to do some shit. He wanted me to show him how to do like the iridescent anodizing, and he wanted me and Elliot to show him like how to hand grind blades, stuff like that. And I was like, and then, so that was supposed to happen in the fall, and that late spring, early summer, I want to say, he passed away. And this is still here. And it doesn't ever get carried, doesn't ever cut anything, just lives in the box as a reminder of somebody that I liked a lot, that was taken from us too soon. So this I definitely have a big emotional attachment to. I almost sold this at one point. It almost killed me to sell it, and then I got to a point where I didn't have to sell it, which made me so happy. But the guy I was going to sell it to was another of Elijah's really good friends. It was John Gray. John Gray was going to buy it from me just to have it and add it and just keep it with stuff. And when I got to the point where I was like, I don't have to sell it, he was like, good. He's like, we were trying to figure out where all his knives went. You know, we were trying to make sure that his family didn't, because apparently his family was kind of shitty, and everybody was afraid they were going to steal a bunch of his stuff. And they're like, as long as it's with where it belongs. And I'm like, yeah. He was like, fine. No, that's great. It was him, Nick Chirpin, a couple other guys were trying to get all that put together and get it figured out. So that one right there, that's a really important piece. One of my favorite knives, just because every time I can pull this out, I can just remember. I might not remember his name all the time because I'm getting old and I've had a lot of head trauma, but I definitely can remember the times that I got to hang out with Elijah and things like that. And the whole thing is, I don't call people by their last name. So Elijah was he's just a great dude. And it was sad, and I really wanted to try and get him out here, and I think that would have been a lot of fun. We would have had a blast. The videos that would have resulted from that would have been incredible, and I don't even mean from a financial perspective, just a lot like my Bob Truzola video that I did. And if you guys haven't seen that, I did a whole video of the life and times of Bob Truzola. We did a whole interview. I was with him for like an 8-hour day, and it turned into like a 10 gigabyte file. And then I got pared down to like an hour and a half interview and video. If you haven't seen that video, you need to go watch it. Bob Terzola is one of the best guys in the world, and being able to call him a friend and go visit and film with literally one of the godfathers of tactical knives and one of the OG custom handmade knife makers, just insane to be able to go to a craftsman like that, to go to his house and film in his personal shop. It was amazing. It was amazing. And I got to go up there and I got to spend the day with him and his wife, Sue, and they're the best. So if you haven't seen that video, you need to go see it. And there's another one I did where I talk about, like, I have over 200 knives, but do I need them? And I go through and I justify, and I would like it if you guys would go watch that, because that was like my biggest project I've done so far. But now we went full circle. It's been 2 hours. I timed it just about perfect. I wanted to get back around to the last knife at the 2 hour mark so that we could just kind of goof off a little bit after that. Now we're going to talk about probably what I think is the best knife I've bought ever. It's got, I think it's rapidly, I think for functionality, I said this is the best production knife, high-end production knife I ever bought. I still stand by that because of the functionality and things like that. But I gotta say that the knife I'm about to show you is rapidly running up the ranks of my favorite of all time. It's already my knife of the year. The Microtech Amphibian. Oh, Dave had to go. Guys, if you like the video, please drop a like. This is insane how good this knife is. I'm friends with Tony Marfione. I sent him a message. I told him how good this was. Shut up. Bark at the neighbors. This thing is off the charts on how good it is. And I'm gonna give you guys something. There's so much stuff about this knife. So first of all, the blade grind on it is just, for such a big knife, such a delicate grind on this. And then the aggressive edge that the steel takes. Like, I've heard people complain about the M390 MK. I gotta say, I've only sharpened this once. I bought this knife back in April, I wanna say. I've only had to sharpen this knife once. And it had an okay factory edge, but the factory edge wasn't exactly what I wanted. And it didn't hold as long as I thought it would, but a lot of factory edges are like that. There's a little bit of metal fatigue. This sharpened really well. And I took it to an aggressive edge. George, you asked me the same thing yesterday, or the other day when we talked about this knife. No, I like the black. We'll get to that. It just feels perfect in hand with the balance and everything. And then the blade is brilliantly done. Now, there is a little bit, and a lot of people complain about this, and I do too from time to time, but having made knives for people that are hard on things, can you guys see, like, the edge comes down, it's ground really thin here, and then there is some thickening of the blade at the tip, ever so slightly. And you can see that that edge starts to widen up at the tip on both sides. It's consistent from side to side. It's because the tip is a little bit thicker than the body of the blade, which I'm fine with, because if the tip was as acute and as fine as this edge is here, you'd have a chance of knocking the tip off of it. So you've got a resilient tip. It's a brilliantly ground recurve. It is absolutely perfect in hand. Well, if you've got hands like mine, it's just about perfect in hand. It sits in there. It's a 9.5 overall inch length knife, and it doesn't feel out of sorts with itself. A lot of times knives have a tendency, once you get past the pivot on a bigger knife, you start to lose control of the tip, but because of the way that it's slanted, you kind of stay more in line with it on the cut. Then you get into the action. So it's done in an axis lock style, crossbar lock, but it's a plunger style like Benchmade did on the Anthem. Action on it is just insane. It's not a flipper. It's a slow roll off of these thumb plates, which, by the way, very futuristic looking. But then you get into this, and this is what we were talking about, is the handles. The aluminum handles on this are absolutely beautiful. I cannot think of a company that does aluminum handles as well as Benchmade does, or I mean, Microtech does. Benchmade doesn't do good on much anything. I can't think of a company that does aluminum as well and the anodizing as well. Now I have, if you can see, I've dropped mine right there. There's a little spot. I dropped it. I scuffed it up outside. I dropped it on the concrete. But that's the only spot. And I mean, a lot of other knives you would have problems with that. Like all that ano would be like stripped off or chipped off. I don't know what they do differently with their hard coat. I don't know if that they just run it thicker when they do it. And then just the way the overall look of this knife, backspacer and everything. But then they've went back to just standard hardware. So you don't need a special tool to get your pocket clip off. It just simply is all Torx construction, and you have a reversible pocket clip because it's an ambidextrous lock. It's fucking great. I mean, Lacey says here, okay, yeah, that is way too big for me to carry, but overall, very well done knife. Yeah, and it's for a big guy like me, it's not a problem to carry something like that. For a petite young lady like you, much more difficult for you to carry something that's a 9.5 inch overall. I got heartburn. Guys, I gotta make a doctor's appointment. It does not matter what I eat. I have heartburn. I'm starting to worry about like having to have my gallbladder out. Regardless what I eat, I have heartburn. A lot of people could say the same thing. A lot of people could say the same thing about this, the Military 2. It's too big, it's out of sorts. It really isn't. Would you EDC a Cold Steel XL? Dude, I have EDC'd everything that you can imagine to getting thrown my way. I EDC'd a gravity knife, I've EDC'd switchblades, I EDC'd this. I carried this all over downtown San Diego. There are very few things that I would not EDC. And considering that there's no restrictions on blade length size in San Diego versus a lot of cities in California, I can carry whatever size folding knife I want. So a lot of people though, like Lacey, you were saying about like overpriced stuff. A lot of people say the same thing about Spyderco because their prices are higher than some other brands, but they are American made. Their heat treat is really good. Well, a lot of their knives are American made. The problem that a lot of people have with Spyderco stuff, and I do too, still, I had somebody say something about it. I was like, oh, way to buy, the holy grail of sprint runs again. When I talked about this, I don't think that they watched the video. I think they just saw that it was another Spyderco variant of the Military. I don't think they actually watched the video because they would have had a different outlook because of the way I talked about it. What Spyderco does do, they do really well. I just think that they go too far with the whole sprint run thing. I absolutely agree with that because the whole sprint run thing makes them into, it kind of makes them like, I don't know, it makes them seem cheaper than they are. It makes it seem like Frost Cutlery, like, well, you get it in like 8 different colors. The same knife in 8 different colors, and that's what I see when I see people that have, oh, I have a knife collection, and you go and they've got like 8 different PM2s. And I was like, no, you have the same knife multiple times. Like literally you have like 10 knives in your collection. You may have 200 knives, but you've got 10 knives in your collection because you've got duplicates. Spyderco is getting more expensive, but I honestly, what I've seen from the last few, I think they're going in the right direction, and the price increase may be warranted because they are starting to get rid of some of their QC issues. Like I said, this one came perfect. I've heard a couple other people say the same thing, that their Crew Carta military twos were the best done Spydercos they've ever had. They come with very few flaws. This doesn't even have blade play, which if you guys are Spyderco guys, you know this. You're gonna have blade, like as smooth and free as this one is, it's got blade play, a little bit of blade play. I can't tighten the pivot down anymore. Like it's as tight as it gets. So they have some things that are just common things. But this knife, very few issues. It had a misgrind back here. I think they're starting to wrap around some of their QC issues and stuff. But what I'm noticing is their heat treats. They're spending time on not just marketing and doing the sprint runs and the Yu-Gi-Oh card things, but they're spending time figuring out the processes. And these two probably have the best production heat treats I've ever had on these steels. Production heat treats. This one is S90V. This is comparable to custom knives I've had in S90V when it comes to the heat treat. How the edge holds, the edge it takes, the aggressiveness of the edge it takes at different grits, and then just the overall edge retention and everything that you're getting. So the heat treat on this, the only heat treat I've had better on S90V is in a custom knife. And then the Crew Carta version of this military too, the crew wear in my Carta, this crew wear, this is still the factory edge. And I constantly am carrying and using this knife. And I mean, when I say it's still a factory edge and it's aggressive, all I have done to this edge is I've touched it lightly on an ultrafine ceramic rod, or ceramic plate, Spyderco Ultrafine, and then stropped it on the suede side of the pouch, or the suede pouch that it's in, that Spyderco Ultrafine that has been loaded with Lacey's 9 micron. Not enough to remove the edge. You can still see the factory edge on it. I've just touched up the edge and stropped it back, and this is insanely aggressively sharp. Like still factory edge, hair whittling, just with minor edge maintenance, which means that the heat treat on this is just fucking leaps and bounds above other production companies when it comes to what they're doing with their crew wear. The only other crew wear knife I've had that has a heat treat that's comparable to this is this knife here, and this is a custom knife. This is the only one, and this heat treat is on par. This is also in crew wear. But this is a custom knife. So you shouldn't be getting, like, I'm gonna say, you should not be getting production heat treats. Not that I'm upset with it, but you should not be getting production heat treats that are on good and as on par with custom knives, because thousands of blades done at a time in a big heat treat oven, 5 to 10 blades done at a time in a small heat treat oven. You see what I'm saying? Smaller batch numbers, you're gonna get more consistent results. You're gonna get better heat treats. It could be that I lucked out this time, because I'm that guy that always gets a lemon. Like if I'm buying knives, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna get a lemon. So, Para 2, I wouldn't ever get rid of this. This is so good, and especially after I changed the color of the scales. I still think this is the best all-around EDC that money can get you right now, is the Spyderco PM2. Any of the variants. I think the S90V and the Crewwear would probably be the ways to go. Those are probably the best materials that they're doing them in right now. I honestly think it is. I think they've got those nailed as far as like heat treat and how they're being done. Sorry, I got to check this again. My daughter is in Japan. She's been texting me back and forth. Apparently she can't sleep. Pizza lover Lace. I live in Canada. It's even though it's legal, CBSA is a joke. I'm sorry. I missed my Para 2, thinking about getting another one of Rex 45. Rex 45 is cool. I like Crewwear. I really have fallen in love with Crewwear steel. I will say Crewwear is one of those steels that I have to worry about maintaining. I was hoping it wasn't. I hate the Para 3. I hate the Para 3. It's like if the military and the PM2 had a retarded little brother. You know what I mean? It's like big brother, the middle brother, and then one of them had Down syndrome. I'm not making fun of people with Down syndrome. I'm just saying that's what I had a cousin that had Down syndrome. One of my favorite people I've ever met in my life. It just is not a great knife. And I know a lot of people love it. I mean, it's basically a PM2. I've said this. It's like what a Para 3 looks like to me is somebody took a PM2 and broke off about that much of the tip and then did a tip repair. You don't get much of a change in the handle length, but you get a drastic reduction in blade length. And already the blade to handle ratio is way worse on this one than it is on this one. You can see it. The blade to handle ratio, there's not enough blade in this one. And it's because of this stupid tube that they keep putting in all their knives. It's in the way. They could have gotten closer to 1-to-1. I think because of the additional length and the additional width of the handles on this, they were able to get a little bit more blade in a military too. But the PM3, or the Para 3, I'm sorry, is just not good. It doesn't feel right in hand. It feels out of sorts. It feels like the blade to handle ratio is too far off. It's just a short little chode. There's not enough blade there to do. This has enough blade to do almost everything I do with my military too. But it's still functional. If you get it back to when you get it back to that length, it's just not a good knife. The geometry's funky, stubby little blade. Yeah. I've never liked the Para 3. I know a lot of people, oh, Para 3, that's like the best knife they make. And I'm like, I really think you're stupid. But hey, you know, stupid people are allowed to have knives. And we have to cater to them. That's why the Para 3 exists. And gas station knives. That's why gas station knives exist. I gotta show you a knife that just still to this day, still to this day, when I pull it out and put it in my pocket, it makes me smile, it makes me giggle. The Ferrum Forge Loris. And the reason it does is because when it's closed, you look at it and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. You open it up, you're like, where the fuck did all that blade come from? See what I'm saying? You look at it and it just looks like any other pocket knife, and you open it up and you're like, good God. What sort of weird Dr. Who magic did they make to make that come out of that handle? It just makes me giggle and smile. I'm like, Chris and Elliot have been famous for maximizing blade to handle ratio and getting you the most blade possible and still get you a comfortable handle. You want to see another one? Here's another one. Here's another one that I find interesting. It's another one. That's a lot of blade. There's more blade than there is handle. There's more blade than there should be. in this knife. This is the Ferrum Forge NTAC. That's because there is literally no space left in these knives. Elliot is famous for that. Like, I can touch the tip of that knife. Not enough that it's dangerous, but I'm touching the tip of that knife. There is no more room for any more knife. See, that pizza lover, there you go. There's your problem. You watched a Wrangler Star video. I used to watch his videos. Now I'm like, I can't even stomach to hear him talk. It's like Nut and Fancy. I used to watch Nut and Fancy's videos, and I was on the fence about them. I can't watch a Nut and Fancy video anymore. I just can't. I just cannot. And I'm sure there's people that say that. I was like, fuck, I can't watch his videos. I can't stomach to listen to him talk. But yeah, Ferrum Forge Knife Works has done that's just an insanely good blade to handle, and then it's just a good looking knife overall. The Aluris is based on a knife that they made called the Demigod, which was a club knife, and they were very, very limited. There was only 10 of them. Oh, Jesus. Are we talking about his thing about like how hard, like you're supposed to use a lot of pressure to strop? Is that what? I can't. I gotta read this. I gotta read this. I gotta see what kind of stupid drama we're dealing with now. I get into it on Reddit all the time. They argue how great the Para 3 is until they are blue in the face. Just a bad design. That's pretty wild. Yeah, how much blade they got. It literally looks fake. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was like, what the fuck? Did he also sell you on stropping your knife and angle? Stropping your knife and angle and hard pressure is how to do it. Yeah, no. You should never use pressure when you're strong. You shouldn't use pressure on anything you're doing on the edge of your knife. Unless you're bearing down to cut, like that's different. But I'm talking like anything involving sharpening. I'm gonna move you guys at a different angle here. Turn this so that I can get a little bit more comfortable. There we go. Yeah, anytime you're doing anything sharpening wise, where you're dealing with applying pressure to the edge of your knife, there shouldn't be pressure. A little bit of pressure is okay. But there's a couple things you're doing. If you're using a strop, you're two things. If you're using a strop material is usually leather, and it's going to be a softer material, and so it's going to put. What'll happen is you put the pressure on it, and it's like when you push down on your skin, and you can see like the skin starts to roll around the edge of the knife. So what's going to happen if you're stropping? You're actually pushing the stropping material up and over and touching the edge, and you're burnishing off your edge. The other thing you're doing is if you've loaded your strop, you're crushing that strop compound down into the leather to where it's not as effective. Second reason. So one, you're not going to get it sharp, and two, you're wasting your stropping compound. If you're sharpening, the stone is going to do the work. Like no pressure. You don't have to push. It's not going to make that stone cut any better. The amount of pressure you put on a stone does not change the amount of grit and the aggressiveness of that grit. It doesn't change. So if you're sharpening and you're putting pressure on it, all you're doing is wearing out your stone, and there's a possibility you're deforming your edge and giving you a false burr, because now you've bent that edge, deformed it at the end, and you're going to chase that back and forth because all you're doing is flexing that material. You're not truly forming the burr you need to form, and you're not actually apexing it, because what you're doing is you're giving yourself a false burr because you're pushing, and it rolls the material up, and it feels like it, but all you're doing is you're just grinding away material, because you're going to chase that back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's the only thing when you're good at sharpening, the first thing that you will learn once you are proficient at it is using pressure is absolutely not your friend. The stone's going to do the work, not the pressure. It's just all there is to it. You cannot go faster. If it's not going as fast as you want, get a more aggressive stone. I literally have a stone now that I can go from a 120 grit Atoma and finish on the next stone and then strop and be done. It's a Shapton Pro Cream, the yellow one that Alex and I were talking about over Outdoors 55, and I were talking about that 1000 grit Shapton Pro. Absolutely, you can you can go from dull to sharp on that. Like you can go from no edge. I sharpen forward and back, maximizing them. Like I'm already on the stone. If I'm only going forward, I'm already going to, if I draw this way, I'm going to have to go back, but then I'm going to have to go back twice as many times. If I'm coming this way, I may as well go up, and I may as well go up and back a few times and then flip. I'm maximizing the amount, I'm maximizing the use of that. Plus one is a edge forward and the next is a stropping stroke. So that stropping stroke kind of cleans up the edge. So you're going to get a better final burr. You're not butting, when you're going this way, you're butting into the abrasive, which is good because it's taking off material. But you're slamming into it. If you come back, you're dragging it back the other way, so it's kind of a stropping stroke, and it maximizes it, and you wind up with a better overall edge doing it that way. But yeah, you should never push down. You're gonna get a false burr, and then then you knock your burr off, and then you're like, oh, but my knife doesn't feel sharp. And that's why people can't get to that hair whittling stage. Now, a lot of times, I don't care if a knife is hand whittling. Or hair whittling, I mean. Will it? Yes, but am I gonna oh, that's the end all be all? Because a lot of times a coarser edge will give you that false bite and a finer edge won't. I'm much more apt to do to just do a really good newspaper cut test. That's a more realistic edge judgment, like how good the edge is. Really fine paper like newspaper. Newspaper's really about newspaper, phone book paper if you can get it. The guides, the voters' guides that they send you in the mail prior to voting day, election day. Those ones, they're made out of phone book material. Those things are great. And if there's people that are running you don't like, you can make sure you cut through their head because their pictures are always on the pages. Like if you don't like Adam Schiff, you could just gently start slicing off pieces at the top of his head. You guys remember Kids in the Hall? Only squishing your head. Yeah, that kind of thing. I'm very juvenile. I am a very juvenile individual. So, but I think that's more of a real world sharpness test than that hair whittling. Because like I said, this will do that all day and twice on Sunday. Is it sharper than this knife, which has a different edge? This has a much finer edge than this. Will this do it? Yeah, but does it bite as easily? No. You know why? This is a much finer edge. This is probably a 220 grit factory edge. This is a 5,000 or 8,000 grit edge. I can't remember what I put on this. It will do it, but a lot of those tests that you see people doing, a lot of those things like, oh, this knife's so much sharper. As Bob Terzola said in the interview I did talking about Sal Glesser, it's not about whether the knife is sharp enough to cut paper. It's knowing how to cut paper. This knife, I can definitely go out and grab a paper towel for you and just slice right down through a piece of paper towel. I can't do that with this knife. Even though that when you feel the edge on this knife definitely feels sharper than this knife. You know why? A finer edge is not going to cut the material of a paper towel as efficiently as a coarser edge. You're gonna get some false, like the people that do that bus or that best sharpness tester, you can trick that. You can trick that. I could send somebody one of the sharpest knives I have sharpened and they could still make it get a lower number than a dollar knife because it's all about how you apply the pressure and how consistently you apply the pressure and whether you pop down through it or slam down through it quick, and you're going to get a lower rating than if you gently push down. It will do it for a few cuts. Yeah, that's the thing. It'll do it for a few cuts. Now, I know this crew wear, when I strop it back up on Lacey's stropping compound, it comes right back up to hair whittling. This one does as well. And like I said, this is, I want to say this, I took this to either, I think I took this to 8,000 grit. So those little things that you pick up from learning how to sharpen are going to make it better. But there's people out there that play tricks with the whole thing of like, oh, well, this knife is sharper than this knife because I can do this. Do you guys remember for a long time, the big one was like, put a tomato down and then you cut a slice through it? You guys know that that's all a trick, right? It's the angle at which you're you're pushing into. It's like the paper towel roll. Cutting at the right angle where you've touched up and you've caught and it's not going anywhere because the pressure you're applying with the knife is downward enough that it's holding the roll, but still at an angle enough you can cut through it. It's just 100%. I don't know. I don't trust any of it. But it's been 150 minutes, guys. I don't want to do a 3-hour live feed. So I'm pretty sure the dog wants to go for a walk. He keeps eyeballing me. He's sitting next to the door eyeballing me that he probably needs to go pee. So before he starts crossing his legs, I'm going to end this. But this has been fun. I'll try to do these. I'll try to do these like as long as I can. I have been pretty depressed about the whole job situation thing. If you guys want to check in on some of my other videos, I greatly appreciate it. I did a video yesterday that didn't get any traffic at all. It was under 200 views, which is kind of unusual. So if you guys would, I'd really appreciate it if you go check out those videos. Just go find my videos and put them on a playlist and put them in the background. If you can afford to do super chats for your creators that you like, not talking about me particular, but if you can afford to do super chats or super thanks or like support them by going to their memberships, do so. I have a couple memberships that I'm going to have to cancel, and I hate doing it. There's a couple channels that I have monthly memberships to, and I'm going to have to. Well, we'll have to see. Like I said, I don't like getting money from the government for unemployment. Yes, have I done GoFundMes and things like that? Yeah, because I get money from you guys, and it was absolutely something different than that. But being on unemployment feels dirty. I've never taken unemployment. I did do GoFundMes and things like that, and I know it irritated some people, but it was one of those things, you know, like, hey, if people were willing to help out. But I feel dirty taking unemployment money. Oh, that's the other thing. There's a trick to like the hair, making sure the hair is good and wet. That's another one. So, guys, I'm out. I'm gonna take Fuzzball for a walk. I need to go get some vitamin D. I don't know if you guys have noticed. I've been getting a lot of sun. I've spent a lot of time outside. I got some decent color to me. I'm not that pasty white living in the studio. So my videos, have not been getting filmed. Well, I mean, they just haven't been getting filmed. I've been depressed. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to apologize. We're going to run out of content soon. The wife and kid will be back on Monday. So that's going to be a big change. I've got to get the house cleaned up. I got to get some stuff taken care of. I've got to go do smog check on the wife's car. I was supposed to do it today, and my back hurts, and I don't feel like doing it. That's why I'm sitting in here instead of being out in my studio doing things. And I just have not. I like to put on a brave face about it, but I got to tell you, like, I'm losing my mind about losing that job. I am so distraught over something stupid that I'm at a loss. But those of you that are paying members, keep your eyes open. I've got like 4 knives that are slated out there for giveaways for you guys. I'm probably going to do them all in one video. So it'll be 3 people. So you're going to have to keep your eyes out on the community tabs if you're a paying member, and I'll put a video out for the paying members for those who won. I usually give everybody like 48 hours to to make sure that they claim their prizes. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, Bladed Ginger, I got a lot of friends here that I can talk to. As a matter of fact, I talked with my therapist for, that's why we didn't do a live feed yesterday, for like 2.5 hours. I talked to my therapist. So I'm okay. It's just like, I know that I have depression. I know it runs my family. I have PTSD, which adds to it. And I definitely have, I took a step backwards and I kind of was starting drinking again. And so I said, I'm not going to fucking have any, I have friends that are definitely enablers, and they were buying alcohol and they were coming by and they're dropping off alcohol. And I had my friend Nick that was staying here for a little while because he was he left his wife because she went absolutely insane and tried to kill him and busted the windshield out of her car, and he's trying to get her committed. But he's like, I just can't. You reach a point where no matter how much you love someone, you can't, like, you've got to draw that line. Like I have to worry about the fact that I feel unsafe. So he was staying here till he could find a place while he's dealing with that. So he was definitely enabling it. I would come home and there was always beer in the refrigerator. But yeah, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. And so I was drinking a beer last night and I started getting down, and I was like, you just talk to your therapist. You stated the fact that you probably shouldn't drink because you're depressed. So I'm done doing that. So when I got that job, I quit drinking. I didn't drink at all when I had that job, except for a couple times I went to a friend's house. I went to Chris and Elliot's house. I had a couple beers there. I went to Nico's house. No, I didn't. I went to Matt's house twice, had a couple beers there. But it's all been like just me, the wife, and the kid went. And so I wasn't just sitting around the house. It's when you sit around the house by yourself. That's when you really need to look at it. If you're sitting around the house by yourself, and like I did 3 days ago, at 9 a.m., you're opening a beer. Use your head. Use your fucking head. Don't let yourself get into this situation. So, guys, that is it. I love you all. I will talk to you later. I will see you in the next video. I may do a live feed tomorrow, but tomorrow there will be a pre-recorded video going up at noon. And if you have not watched the videos that I put out recently, I put a lot of work into some of them, especially the one where I talk about, like, I've got 300 knives. Do I need all of them? Shit like that. So, guys, I love y'all. I'll see you in the next video. I got to go take the dog for a walk.